to another intensivecarehotline.com and intensivecareathome.com live stream. Ask me anything, life support decisions, ICU decisions, tracheostomy decisions, and intensive care at home decisions. Ask me anything. This is your opportunity to talk to me directly and have your questions answered. My name is Patrik Hutzel and I'm the host of this YouTube live stream and the show. What makes me qualified to host the show? Ask me anything about life support in intensive care, ICU decisions, tracheostomy decisions, intensive care at home decisions. Well, I'm glad you've asked. I am a critical care nurse by background, having worked in critical care nursing for over 25 years in 3 different countries. And I've been consulting and advocating for families in intensive care since 2013 here at intensivecarehotline.com. And that's also how long we've been operating at intensivecareathome.com. As a matter of fact, with Intensive Care at Home, we even started 12 months earlier in 2012. So I come with a wealth of knowledge, and that's all documented on my intensivecarehotline.com blog, as well as on the intensivecareathome.com website, where I publish regular content about both intensive care as well as intensive care at home. Now, and you can also look up our testimonials on both websites at intensivecarehotline.com and also at intensivecareathome.com, because I can confidently say here that we have saved many lives with our consulting and advocacy, as well as with our intensivecareathome.com service, nursing service at home, where we provide a genuine alternative to a long-term stay in intensive care. We're cutting the costs of an intensive care bed by around 50%, and we are bringing the intensive care into someone's home, providing much improved quality of life, and in some instances quality of end of life for our clients and their families. Now, I also want to welcome our viewers on replay, because I know these videos are getting watched on replay if you couldn't make it to the live stream. But obviously, if you can make it to the live stream, this is your opportunity to ask your questions directly to me. Type them into the chat pad or click on the StreamYard link and talk to me directly here. Like I said, have a look on our testimonial sections. You can also look up our intensivecarehotline.com podcast section, where we have done client interviews. Now, we are usually going for about an hour. And I want to welcome everyone, whether you're in Australia, in the US, in the UK, Canada, India, South Africa, wherever you are. I welcome each and every one of you. Also, if you find value in those videos, click the like button, share the video with anyone that you think will benefit from these videos. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, of course, and spread the word of what we're doing here for anyone that will benefit from our message here. Now, today I want to start with a couple of local intensive care at home topics. One topic is that, we were working with a client actually for many years, a client with an advanced progressive disability that required her to be on BiPAP. As a matter of fact, she had myasthenia gravis, and she was a local client here in Victoria in Australia, and she was on BiPAP on and off as part of her myasthenia gravis. She was initially NDIS funded for 24-hour nursing care, which she obviously needed. She had a long-standing medical history, and she needed 24-hour critical care nursing at home, as otherwise she would have been in ICU. Now, that worked up until the end of April, early May this year, until the NDIS decided, in spite of overwhelming medical evidence and disability evidence, to cease funding for nursing care. That is in spite of independent nursing assessments by legal nurse consultants with a critical care nursing background. And the minute the funding went down, we obviously had to stop working with this client. And I then informed the NDIS Quality and Safety Commission, highlighting to them that without reinstating the funding, that this particular client will be at high risk of dying. Unfortunately, we found out last week that she passed away just as we predicted. It is another client where the NDIS, I believe, is directly responsible for a patient death. That came after last year as well, where we highlighted a similar situation with the NDIS Quality and Safety Commission. The same happened. So it does keep happening, unfortunately, and we will continue to talk about it here because it needs to stop. People are dying, and it absolutely needs to stop. Now, interestingly enough, I also found an article yesterday that I need to read out today, and I just quickly need to go to my emails. So where is it? There was an article that I found in the news yesterday, a very shocking article because it ties pretty much right in with what I talked about just right now. Oh, there it is. Okay. This is an article that was in the news on the 19th of September, so 2 days ago, on the Daily Mail. Here is what the headline is. I kept my daughter alive for 4 years under a broken NDIS system, but just days after she left my care, she died alone and in a pool of her own vomit. Then the article continues, mother robbed of dignity by NDIS, fought to try and get more care. Government swings axe on NDIS. Those are the sub-headlines. Let me read out the article. A 4-year-old girl died alone in a pool of her own vomit after her family were left to care for her with little support following a cut to her care funding under the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Koa, or Coco as her family affectionately called her, was diagnosed with a rare and incurable neurological condition called lissencephaly, even I can't pronounce it, when she was 5 weeks old. I just typed this medical term in the chat pad actually, so that you can see it. Lissencephaly. She passed away in July 2025 after she caught influenza. She choked on her own vomit while alone in a hospital ward and was pronounced dead a day later. Koa's genetic condition causes severe intellectual and developmental delays, often accompanied by epilepsy, cerebral palsy, and other neurological issues. Many with the diagnosis do not live past the age of 10. Her mother, Alicia Gibson, has accused the NDIS of failing her terminally ill daughter after support for Koa was limited to a nurse just 3 hours a week. Mrs. Gibson said the government service failed to acknowledge the extent of Koa's disabilities, with one pediatrician telling her that if Koa was not deserving of a full-time professional carer, i.e. ICU nurse, no other child in Australia was. From the moment we started asking for help, there was pushback. It didn't matter how much evidence we provided of her disabilities, how many supporting letters, or what we told them. Koa needed to live, Mrs. Gibson told the Daily Mail. Between the ages of 2 and 3 years, Koa's condition worsened and the full extent of her associated disabilities were revealed as she underwent precocious puberty, the rapid early onset of puberty. Her body doubled in size in 3 months, meaning she required a higher level of care than what she provided in her 12 months plan with the NDIS. Symptoms of cerebral palsy, scoliosis, and respiratory issues became clear to her mother and doctors, but not to the button pushers at the NDIS, Mrs. Gibson says. We must have had about 15 to 20 letters from professionals providing supporting evidence that Koa was not receiving adequate help and she needed more, she said. She went from needing one person to carry her to 3 to 4. A push chair needed to be a standard wheelchair. Her NDIS plan did not suit her. They were evaluating her as a 2-year-old when it should have been as if she was 6 or 7 years old. On May 19th, the NDIS changed how funding is provided to recipients. Now, when a plan is reassessed, participants receive funding in 3-month blocks rather than accessing their 12 months of funding all at once. COA's 150-hour allocation for nursing equated to less than 3 hours per week. It didn't matter how much we begged, the NDIS still ignored even supporting evidence and we were overruled, Mrs. Gibson said. So here is the letter that actually COA's mum sent to the NDIS. It's actually published in the on the Daily Mail article. 14th of June 2025, to whom it may concern. It is so disheartening to find myself writing to the NDIS about the proposed funding plan for Koa Gibson, participant 43, just over a year since the last debacle. It is infuriating that after all the drama and angst of last year's plan review, it appears the same thing is happening all over again. The NDIS have issued a plan proposal that is absolutely unfeasible and obviously shows that the person making the assessment has not read Koa's file and history, nor has any idea about her condition and its impact on her life. Koa suffers from lissencephaly, cerebral palsy, which is level 5, the most profound, severe hypotonia. She cannot hold up her own head nor move her limbs in any purposeful way. She's fully incontinent, plus now a full-time indwelling urinary catheter, multifactorial respiratory compromise including oxygen, and BiPAP respiratory support dependency, atypical and difficult to manage seizures. So let me just stop there before I continue reading. Just the section of urinary catheter, multifactorial respiratory compromise including oxygen and BiPAP respiratory support dependency, as well as atypical and difficult to manage seizures. That in and of itself is enough to warrant a critical care nurse 24 hours a day, funded by the NDIS, because cerebral palsy and lissencephaly are funded NDIS diagnoses. Right? And we have clients with similar diagnoses and similar conditions that are 24-hour nursing funded with critical care nurses through the NDIS. So then the letter to the NDIS from Koa's mum continues. Koa requires hoisting for transfers and transport in an electric wheelchair operated by a carer, has severe hypersalivation and inability to manage secretions requiring very frequent deep suctioning, poor cough, and sputum clearance requiring physiotherapy and deep suctioning. And I just stop there again, because again, that in and of itself is also enough evidence to require a critical care nurse 24 hours a day. Severe hypersalivation and the inability to manage secretions requiring very frequent suctioning, poor cough, and sputum clearance requiring physiotherapy and deep suctioning. It's the indication to require critical care nurse 24 hours a day. On top of that, what's not in the article, but I can read from the article, she needs a cough assist machine, which also is the skill of a critical care nurse. So then the article continues. Koa is totally nonverbal and cannot communicate in any meaningful way, requiring full assistance with all activities of daily living and precocious puberty, early onset, requiring a medication that causes brittle bones, This means that COA's disability affects nearly every system of her body. And the management of all these issues requires a very high level of medical care that simply cannot safely be met by carers, even if they have had, quote, and she puts in quotes, high acuity training. And this is what I've been saying on this podcast for many years when it comes to intensive care patients at home. This cannot be managed by support workers or disability support workers or by carers. That is like flying the airplane with a cabin crew instead of the pilot. And we know what happens then. People have died, and I've said it on this podcast many times, and now another person has died. It is unbelievable. It is outrageous, and the NDIS needs to be called out for it. Because it looks like there is overwhelming evidence for the need of a critical care nurse, and this little girl has passed away. So then the article continues. So what I just read out is Mrs. Gibson, COA's mum, sent outline COA's additional disabilities as they became evident in urgent letters to the NDIS, including the email pictured above, or the email that I just read out. Also keep in mind, not even a general registered nurse without ICU experience is qualified to look after patients like COA. Now, she was on oxygen 24/7, a BiPAP ventilator, suffered 8-hour-long seizures each day, and needed up to 60 medications a day. Now, medication management is also something that can only be done by registered nurses, not by disability support workers. Mrs. Gibson said her mental health suffered while caring for COA on her own. I was doing a doctor's, a nurse's, and ICU's nurse's job in my home by myself without qualifications. My mental health was at rock bottom. I wanted to die, she said. The NDIS didn't care. I put in a letter that I wanted to die and nothing changed. COA's mum, Mrs. Gibson, begged the NDIS to release the rest of COA's funds ahead of winter, knowing it was the most dangerous season for at-risk patients. Noah's mum tried to negotiate, asking if all of COA's funding could be released in the place of 24/7 nursing, which she was in the process of trying to secure. Despite other cases of leniency, the NDIS refused. Then Mrs. Gibson became unwell. In June, I caught influenza as COA's primary caregiver, and I knew I was going to kill her. I had nurses volunteer that time because they knew if COA would catch the influenza, she would die, she recalled. The NDIS didn't leave me any space to get sick. They do not account for life. COA did catch her mother's flu and was rushed to hospital on July the 7th, where one nurse is typically in charge of 4 cases. On July the 10th, she vomited medication into her respiration mask, a known risk with her condition, which requires immediate suctioning. Alone on the ward, COA began to drown in her own vomit. The little girl was pronounced dead the following day. This is absolutely horrible and heartbreaking. And just on that note, this is the risk for someone on BiPAP with seizures, right? They are at high risk of vomiting, they're at high risk of aspiration, and this is exactly what's happened here. This is exactly the justification for critical care nurse 24 hours a day, because this is the risk, what can happen in situations like that for those clients. COA's mum continues, said Mrs. Gibson said the loss was difficult to overcome, but the indignity COA and her family had suffered was entirely unjust. When someone passes, it's outside of anyone's control, but the NDIS could have made my life easier, could have granted me quality time, she said. We live in a first world country. We should be looking after Australians. Just because they're disabled doesn't mean they are less than able-bodied people. Mrs. Gibson said she cried for hours after losing COA, her eldest daughter. I wanted to die at the hands of our own government. I can only imagine what it's like in the shoes of a disabled person, she said. COA's gone, but I want accountability from the NDIS, whether it's lifting funding blocks for other Australians like me. They need to get in touch with the actual disability community. The disabled community is only ever asking for enough to stay alive. She said even the most removed roles in the NDIS should be required to have contact with the real people impacted by their policies. An NDIS spokesman said the service extended their condolences to the Gibson family. We express our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Koa Gibson, he told Daily Mail in a statement. The NDIS provides disability-related support. It was designed to complement, not replace, mainstream services that states and territories provide, such as the health system, who the NDIS works with and is best placed to provide medical and palliative care. This is to ensure the best services are provided to meet the disability and health needs related to each person's individual circumstances, and that participants access the right mix of disability and healthcare supports. The NDIS has and always will assess all relevant information received from participants and allied health teams when making decisions in line with the NDIS Act. And that's how the article concludes. Now, I will say that from my extensive experience, the NDIS has to fund health-related supports when it comes to disabilities, as long as the health issues are related to the disability, which it clearly is in this situation. But maybe Koa's mum didn't get the right evidence. I don't know. I haven't seen any evidence. You know, usually a nursing assessment from a critical care nurse is needed in situations like that. Right? I also want to read out what prompted me to read this article, because I found the article actually on LinkedIn, and just need to find the article now on LinkedIn. Just give me 1 second. Here it is. From Dr. George Talaporos. He's a quite prominent podcaster for NDIS topics. He's got a podcast, NDIS Insights with Dr. George. So Dr. George writes on LinkedIn, Koa's death could have been prevented. She lived with a rare neurological condition and needed complex 24/7 care. In May, the NDIA introduced short and inflexible funding periods, releasing funding in 1-month blocks for home and living supports instead of the full 12 months. Her mother, Alicia, realized how dangerous this was for her daughter and asked the NDIA to release all of Koa's funding early. The NDIA refused. Then Alicia, Koa's mum, caught influenza. As Koa's primary carer, she knew the risk. The NDIS didn't leave me any space to get sick. They don't account for life. Soon after, Koa caught the flu from her mother, who couldn't take a break from caring for her daughter. On July the 10th, Koa vomited into her mask, a known risk with her condition, but no one came to help her because she was left alone in a hospital ward. She drowned in her own vomit. The next day, she was gone. This tragedy was preventable. I warned the NDIA that inflexible short funding periods for home and living supports would cause serious harm. I met with the NDIS minister and the CEO of the NDIA. I told them families would be unable to respond in a crisis. And here we are. I deeply regret that I did not even push harder. Short funding periods were only ever intended to be used when there is a risk of fraud or a history of misuse. The NDIS Act requires that individual circumstances be considered. But the NDIA is applying short funding periods across the board to families like Koa's who sometimes need extra help to keep their daughter alive. It is cruel and reckless, and it is costing lives. Our lives do not fit neatly into fixed funding periods. Shit happens, and we need the flexibility to draw on more support when we are in crisis. The NDIS must act now. Remove inflexible short funding periods and apply them only in cases of fraud or misuse, in line with the NDIS Act. Enable critical exceptions that unlock full budgets when risk escalates. Allow people when complex needs to use the NDIS funding to keep them safe while in hospital with support workers and nurses, critical care nurses who know them well. To the NDIA and the government, please fix this. We must do everything we can to prevent more people dying. Please share COA's story and your own experience of inflexible funding periods. The more these stories are told, the harder it becomes for decision makers to look away. Image description: COA, a young girl lies in a hospital bed wearing a bright polka dotted dress and connected to medical equipment such as a BiPAP machine, which is attached to a breathing mask. Her mother, Alicia, sits beside her, holding COA tenderly in her arms and clasping her hand. Alicia's face shows deep grief and exhaustion as she comforts her daughter. This is absolutely heartbreaking, and it needs to stop. Please share this story as much as you can. But I also believe that maybe COA's mom and family didn't have the right support system in place with the right NDIS support coordinator. Usually, the right NDIS support coordinator will make things happen for clients, NDIS participants and their families. And also usually the right NDIS nursing assessment. And if you get a doctor's letter, get a physio assessment, respiratory assessment, get an OT assessment, all of that. The evidence is there. The NDIS can't really refuse, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't exist and we wouldn't be in business. So just keep that in mind as well. Now, I will share the link to this article as well so that you can see it, and because I think it is critically important that people have access to this crucial information. Now, with intensive care at home, we are currently sending our ICU and critical care nurses into the home 24 hours a day. We are providing the following: home care services for ventilated adults and children with tracheostomies with critical care nurses 24 hours a day. A genuine alternative to a long-term stay in intensive care or long-term acute care. Tracheostomy care for clients without ventilation. Home care services for patients on non-invasive ventilation such as home BiPAP, home CPAP. Home TPN, which is also known as IV nutrition. Home IV potassium and home IV magnesium infusions, IV fluids and IV antibiotics. We are providing central line management, PICC line management, Hickman's line management, as well as port management at home. We're providing nasogastric tube and PEG tube management at home. The use of cough assist machines for our clients for airway clearance at home. Palliative care services at home, as well as ventilator weaning at home. We're also sending our critical care nurses into the home for emergency department bypass services. We have done so successfully as part of the Western Sydney Local Area Health District, their In Touch program, saving approximately $2,000 per patient that we keep at home instead of them going to an emergency department. That also means we're in a position to cut the cost of an intensive care bed by around 50%. An intensive care bed costs between $5,000 to $6,000 per bed day. Our service costs between $2,500 to $3,000 per bed day, and we're freeing up the most sought after bed in the hospital, which is the ICU bed. Most importantly, we're improving the quality of life for patients and their families, which is a win-win situation for all stakeholders. Of course, quality of life is much improved surrounded by families and by a team of dedicated intensive care nurses in the home care setting instead of in an intensive care unit. With intensive care at home, we are currently operating all around Australia in all major capital cities as well as in all regional and rural areas. We work with NDIS clients all around Australia, TAC and WorkSafe in Victoria, Department of Veteran Affairs all around Australia. Our clients and we as a service provider have also received funding through public hospitals, private health funds, as well as departments of health. We are having policies and procedures for intensive care at home nursing, and we've built all the intellectual property for intensive care at home since 2012. No other provider in Australia has created more intellectual property when it comes to intensive care at home nursing than we have. This puts us in a position to employ hundreds of years of critical care nursing experience combined in the community. No other service provider in 2025 employs a higher skill level in the community than we do, which enables us to look after the highest acuity adults and children in the community in Australia safely. So if you're at home already, and if you're watching this, or you're stuck in an ICU long term, or if you're going to hospital and ED all the time, and you realize that you don't have the right level of support at home, or if you are stuck in an ICU, I'll give you a real world example today how we can help you. One of our first clients when we first got started in 2012 was a client who was at home initially on a ventilator with a tracheostomy with a support worker model 24/7. Of course, support workers are not equipped to look after a client at home on a ventilator with a tracheostomy. That is dangerous and it's simply negligent. Having support workers looking after a client at home on a ventilator with a tracheostomy is like flying the airplane with a cabin crew instead of the pilot, because anyone on a ventilator with a tracheostomy is at very high risk of medical emergencies 24/7, or even at high risk of dying if they don't have a team of dedicated critical care nurses looking after them 24/7 at home. This is actually evidence-based and is documented in our mechanical home ventilation guidelines that you can find on our website at intensivecarehome.com. Think about it. In an intensive care unit in a hospital, you wouldn't have support workers looking after your critically ill loved one or after any critically ill patient on a ventilator with a tracheostomy. So why would anyone in their right mind do that in a home care environment in the community? So this client at the time found out about us eventually, and the ICU that he was basically living in also knew about us and eventually reached out to us. And we were proving our concept with this client very fast. When we worked with this particular client, we sent him critical care nurses 24 hours a day, and he never ever went back into ICU ever again as long as we were working with this client. We can do the same for you if you're not safe at home and help you with keeping you at home predictably. Otherwise, we would not be in business. Again, the same is applicable for those stuck in an ICU, similar to this case study that I've just given you. Or if you're going back to ED all the time, please reach out to us. We can help you with taking you through the right steps, including how to get funding with different funding bodies. This is also why we are providing NDIS support coordination. We have a team of NDIS support coordinators, and they have a wealth of knowledge. I've done an interview with Amanda Richards, one of our NDIS support coordinators, and I'll put a link to an interview with Amanda in the written version of this blog. We're also providing TAC case management and WorkSafe case management in Victoria with Lucy McCodder. If you're an NDIS support coordinator or a case manager from another organization watching this and you're looking for nursing care for your participants, please reach out to us as well. If you need more evidence for nursing care, we are also writing NDIS nursing assessments with legal nurse, critical care consulting nurses. If you are a critical care nurse and you're looking for a career change and you want to join a very progressive, dynamic, and high-performing team of critical care nurses in the community, we're employing hundreds of years of critical care nursing experience combined. You can join this high-performing team if you are a critical care nurse. If you are looking for a career change as a critical care nurse, we're currently hiring for jobs for critical care nurses in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, in Albury, Wodonga, in Bendigo, in Geelong, in Warragul, in Victoria. If you have worked in critical care nursing for a minimum of 2 years, pediatric ICU, ED, and you have already completed a postgraduate critical care nursing qualification, we will be delighted hearing from you. I do have a disclaimer though, because we are offering a tailor-made solution for our clients, which includes regular staff. Our clients also do want the same staff coming over and over again because they are so vulnerable and so special. That's why we need regular staff. So if you're looking for agency work where you can come and go, this will not be the right fit for you. We are looking for consistency and our clients are looking for consistency. So please only apply with us if you can give us regular and consistent availabilities for shifts and you're really keen on building solid relationships with us and with our clients. If you're an intensive care specialist or an ED specialist, we also want to hear from you. We're currently expanding our medical team as well. We can also help you eliminate your bed blocks in your ICU and in your ED for your long-term patients or for your regularly readmitting patients with our critical care nursing team at home. We're here to help you take the pressure off your ICU and ED beds, and in most cases, you won't even pay for it. Even if you do pay for it, it is so much more cost-effective than what you're paying for in ICU and ED, and you get the same level of care. And if you're a hospital executive watching this and you have bed blocks in your ICU, ED, and respiratory wards, or for home TPN, please reach out to us as well. We can help you eliminate your bed blocks very fast. If you're in the US and in the UK, and you're watching this and you need help, we want to hear from you as well. We can help you there privately with one-on-one consulting and with hiring nurses privately. Once again, our website is intensivecareathome.com. Call us on one of the numbers on the top of our website or simply send us an email to info@intensivecareathome.com. And if you like my videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel for regular updates for families with intensive care at home and intensive care. Click the like button, click the notification bell, share this video with your friends and families, and comment below what you want to see next or what questions and insights you have from this video. Thank you so much for watching. This is Patrik Hutzel from intensivecareathome.com, and I will talk to you in a few days. Take care for now.